to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brenda, would you please do roll call?
Director Ward,
Here.
President Klein-Jerome,
Here.
Vice President Postian,
Here.
Director Potts,
Here.
Director Barnes,
Here.
Director Beck.
Here.
I'll note on the agenda that Director Beck is joining us virtually. Director Hayes. I will mark Director Hayes as absent.
Thank you. Mission and vision. Director Ward, would you please read the mission and vision statements?
Yes. Can we click over to it? Or can I still get There we go. The Davenport Community School District is dedicated to growing excellence in academics, the arts, and athletics for every child by ensuring the highest quality education in an environment shaped by our diverse community, preparing our students to be lifelong learners and productive citizens. The vision statement. Education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Director Potts, would you please read the guiding principles?
Guiding principles. Opportunity. We provide abundant opportunities to empower students to reach their full potential academically, creatively, and socially. Collaboration. We foster an environment that allows students, families, and community stakeholders to come together for the betterment of our students' education and future. Transparency. We share relevant and important information with our students, families, and the community to maintain open and productive communication.
Thank you. Superintendent Schneckloff, would you please read the goals?
Goal number 1, to enhance student learning.
Thank you. Student board members.
Hi. At West, we have a ton of outstanding students. We want to congratulate Olivia Pisano for being the 2025 recipient of the Dooley Scholarship, and Ellie Holdorf for getting academic all-state for basketball. And then we also had 6 students from West who have received the John Deere Scholarship, and those students are Samir Andalog, Kaylee Bradley, Alexandra Herrera, Emily Johnson, Marianna Lee, and Olivia Pisano. Also at West, we just wrapped up Inclusion Week, and that was really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Harrison is asking for Kleenex donations, and they also are asking for a parent to volunteer to help their librarians. They're also, they opened their spirit store, so make sure you get the merch if you're got some kids there. It closes on the 13th. Then they also are getting a new therapy dog named Lavender, so that's nice. Then Imogene, Cole, and Piper competed in the Battle of the Books, and they apparently did pretty well, so nice work, guys. Our Joy Club volunteered at Pizza Ranch this last week, and we worked there. We got like $400, and it was really great. We're starting a paper drive, and we're giving the paper supplies to Harrison Stepping Stones, so that's nice. Joy Club will be going to the state convention because Joy Club's actually like an international club, and we have like a smaller club in Davenport schools, so we're going to the state convention on March 29th. Then the green team's starting a spring cleaning free store, and the idea is you want to bring in stuff that you aren't using, and you can give it to people who actually want to use it and stop waste. And our Envirothon team will be competing on the 28th.
Thank you.
All right. For the 3rd year in a row, the Davenport North girls basketball team is heading to IGHSAU Girls State Basketball Tournament after a 48-46 win over Cedar Falls. North's show choir had a very exciting weekend. Northside received grand champs, and Sea Sage got runner up for the first time in like 9 years. So we're killing it. And speaking of growing excellence here at North, we are welcoming our new principal, Eric Johnson. He has over 18 years of experience with the Davenport Community School District, and he is currently a principal at Williams Middle School. And he has a track record of success and growing excellence and boosting academic achievement. Unfortunately, seniors this year, we won't be here for his new role taking over 2025 and 2026 school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognitions, there are none. Presentation.
Today, Josh and his team have been going around the district gathering photos of the current projects that are done. So Josh is going to walk us through the work that's going on right now and some of the work that is just wrapped up. Thanks for putting this together, Josh.
No problem. I didn't know I'd have so many people here to take a peek at my slideshow tonight. So 2024-25 has been a pretty busy year. This is kind of just a sneak peek at a few things we're working on, but obviously I didn't want to wrap up everything in here. To kind of recap a few of the bigger things we've worked on over a year and a half or so. We've gotten furniture in Jefferson, Harrison, Hayes, Madison, Wilson, and Eisenhower. That's part of our phase 1 commitment to upgrading some of our elementary schools. Eisenhower got some carpet, North got gym floor, Madison got a gym floor. I'll go in depth in these a little bit more when I get to them, but Central Roof had a problem for a long time. I won't go through them all. You can take a look at it if you want. As you can see, the furniture we brought into the schools has been well received. There's quite a few different styles that go into each classroom, but you can see in the back of the room and in the front of the room, in the photo to the right, you can see the teachers are also getting new desks and furniture with these upgrades, as well as the students. Again, so far the reviews have been pretty good. A few things here and there, but overall the kids seem to enjoy it. The North Gym floor, that project itself was around $32,000 to sand, refinish, and give it kind of a new shine. If you've been there to see it, it looks pretty darn nice for $30-some thousand. It gave it a new lift. Madison, we also did this in one of the elementary schools. So if you've been around elementary schools and seen some gym floors that look a little rougher, we gave this one a little upgrade. Just to give you an idea of what that costs to do that project was around $12,000. But again, the finished product looks a lot nicer than an old gym floor you see in some buildings throughout the district. I don't know if you recall, but 4 years ago or so, I brought you guys, some of you weren't on the board at that time, a project to do Truman drainage project, and then we kind of stopped things because of the state and our spending. But last summer we were able to, and into this fall, finish up the Truman drainage project. So if you were there anytime over the last few years, you knew the sidewalks were heaving all over the place. The water was settling in places it shouldn't have been and going into the buildings like it shouldn't have been. So we redid all the drainage around the building, put new sidewalks in so everything should drain away like it should. We also got a new facade around the upper portion of the outside of the building to give it a new look. And we also had some cracks to fill just from years of use around the years of aging and stuff, just cracked concrete. So we fixed that as we did this project. The Truman Playground, if this, we're looking at projects throughout the district. This is one of the projects in the district we did last summer, and it was around $250,000. So this should give you a pretty good idea of what the rest of the project should look like, because this is kind of our basis of design for the rest of the buildings. So playgrounds are extremely expensive, but kids do use them a lot. So that, they'll get 15, 20 years out of this before they probably need to look at replacing it again. The Central Cafe roof, if anybody of you have ever been to the cafe at Central High School, you've seen the walls that have water, looks like it ran down them. They've had leaks in them for years. So we finally fixed it. I believe we haven't had any leaks there after we did this project. So it was like a 10-year ongoing issue where they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. We had to remove the outdoor seating area that had concrete, bricks, blocks all over that building for about $1.5 million. And on the right-hand side, you can see we also gave the cafe some new lighting. We had to replace some windows in there as well as part of that project. We believe we'll be going in there now and doing some painting and upgrades to what was kind of damaged through the years, but I haven't quite got that started yet. The Eisenhower Library, this is like $5,000 worth of carpeting, but we had a leak in that building and it wrecked the flooring, so it was a good time to replace that floor, but just a little upgrade helps. We do a lot of these projects all day, every day throughout the district. I don't even know how many of them we do, but a project with floors here and there happens pretty often. Williams got a new roof. That building had leaks all over in it. Eric's here. He probably could attest to that, but the storm damage here helped us get a new roof in this situation. And again, that was $1 million project. Madison had the fire here a few months back, but I haven't started rebuilding that room yet. We're just getting started with it. These photos kind of give you an idea where it was at a few months ago and where it's at right now. That room had to be completely gutted from top to bottom, and everything in there will be new. Jackson fascia panels. So this is going on out of Jackson. This is from hail damage. So we're replacing it, kind of giving it some color and replacing what was damaged in a storm. And Sudlow, this is a view from on top of the current building, looking down at the construction site a few weeks ago. If you've been by there recently, you've seen a large hole in the lot. That is for watershed restoration, or the yellow tubes or tanks you see there are to slow the water runoff and things like that usually come with parking lots. So you can either do it above ground, where you put rocks above ground and the water kind of goes through that, and over time you got to maintain that and weeds growing in it. But in this case, we chose to put these tanks underground to kind of slow the drainage of water. So that hole is probably around 25 feet deep right now, and they're starting to, I believe, get close to covering it back up. West High School. West High School finished up this fall. A lot of you have been there for the grand opening, but if you hadn't seen it, here's some photos of the new competition gym from a couple of different directions. They have a new athletic entrance, upgraded restrooms right outside that area, and a new weight room that is second to none, I believe. It looks pretty darn nice when I'm in there. I think any kid would enjoy lifting weights there. And a new wrestling room. Again, one of the best in the area. North High School's turf field. The turf was actually put down on the field last fall, but we couldn't progress any further because of weather. They're starting to get back out there. I would expect that field to be, and that ground around there to be operational in a few weeks probably. They'll have things pretty much wrapped up there if the weather stays good. We'll see things wrap up there pretty soon. That's another photo of it. West High School has a building outside of it now. Since we've taken this photo, they've built a concession stand, and they're putting the roof on it this week. Next week, Monday, they will actually start putting turf on this field. So it shouldn't be long if the weather stays good. We will have a turf field operating there shortly as well. The bus lot move is progressing greatly as well. This photo actually to the right, where the studs you can see in the wall are actually a few weeks old also. All of those walls are now up, drywalled, painted, flooring's going in, ceiling grids in, lights are up, and I would expect this project to be wrapped up in around 4 weeks also. So our folks can move from their old bus lot buildings into these new buildings. These people are excited. They've had a lot of old buildings to work out of for a long time, so it will be a huge upgrade for them. And then we can also get started across the road on the turf field project and central baseball field as well. Obviously, I don't have photos of that because we haven't started it yet. I don't have, well, you have Smart listed on here, I'm sure, but Smart Middle School, kind of a news for the day is they started working on that project today. So they're putting the construction fence up around the site, and we're working on that today. So I would expect there'll be dirt moving there shortly. Some future projects we're working on, some call wall replacement at Harrison Wood and Walcott. That's due to hail damage. But again, It will be an upgrade. We're doing furniture replacement at Jackson, McKinley, and Garfield. Harrison parking lot, we're just going to grind off the top and put a new layer over the top of the current parking lot there. We're going to do playground replacement at Jackson, McKinley, and Garfield. Fillmore's going to get a new roof. McKinley's getting some tuck pointing done. Obviously, the room that had a fire at Madison. Smart, I just gave you an update on. North High School, we actually had the footings and foundations bid go out last week, and those results will come in next week, Friday. So that will give us kind of a jump start on starting that building. And this fall, we'll be starting actually constructing the building itself. There's a ton of other projects going on throughout the district. Painting, graphics, like I talked about earlier, some of that stuff's going to get rolling here even over spring break. Yeah, that's the majority of what we've been working on. Any questions you guys have?
Director Poston.
So the classroom furniture that you've been replacing, what have you been doing with the old furniture?
Well, if it's of age to dispose of, we get rid of it. Some of it's fully depreciated out, like pretty old and in rough shape. Some of it we have in storage right now. Some of it we've been selling. So okay. It's a mix.
So since this is this equipment's purchased by public money, are you limited on where you can sell that?
Yeah, I can't. I have to basically put it out for bid if I'm going to sell it.
So like other school districts could purchase it or something like that?
We put it on govdeals.com when we sell our stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I've been in some of the buildings and, it definitely needed replacing, but they're not totally destroyed. So I was just curious if the school district could get some money for that.
Yeah. I know in storage right now we have a lot of furniture and chairs and things like that. But it's kind of a work in progress. If we think things are like old enough that you just get thrown out, we have been doing that. It's fully depreciated out. It's old furniture. If we think it's salvageable and will match a building we currently have, we keep it. I believe we're probably going to get rid of some of it because we have a lot right now.
Okay. And then I was told that the holdup at Madison, as far as repairing those rooms from the fire, is an insurance issue. Is that correct?
It was some of that. I mean, just paperwork has a little bit to do with it. So,
but it will be done by the beginning of the fall semester.
Yes, I believe they should be starting that any day if they haven't already.
Anybody else? The work in the Madison rooms, will that be done internally or we will hire that out?
It'll be hired out.
Okay. There's 2 rooms, correct, that are going to have to be?
There's one major room and probably 2 to 3 other rooms that need to get a little bit of a touch to them. Not as much though.
We have a lot of painting jobs, but do we only employ one painter?
Yeah, we only employ one painter really. So then we hire a lot of that out. When we have big jobs, we have to hire it out.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else? Director Beck, do you have anything?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Board reports. Director Barnes.
3 quick things. Last Wednesday, I had the opportunity to serve on a panel of interviewers for the Dooley. Great group of students, 7 fantastic students from the district interviewing for this very prestigious scholarship to study medicine in college. And I would just remark that the stories that our students have are incredible and what they overcome and what they will achieve in the future. That interview panel consists of the principals from North, Central, and West, as well as the school counselors from those schools and a member of the community, Dr. Cheryl True, but great group of students. Also would report that I attended the John Deere Scholars ceremony this morning, which was fantastic. It was nice to see you there. Also President Klein Jerome. And I also wanted to make one quick note. Troy Molenberg, the head men's basketball coach at Central, invited 9 boys from the Central basketball program to go to the state tournament today. And his cutoff was that they had a cumulative GPA of a 3.75 or above. And I appreciate his emphasis on academic achievement for our student athletes at Central.
Great. Director Costin.
Since last meeting, I was able to make some more school visits, and I visited Jefferson, Madison, Eisenhower, Garfield, Wood, Sudlow, Buffalo, Hayes, Children's Villages West, and Jackson. And I just want to thank the staff for allowing me into the rooms. I saw a lot of great learning taking place. And again, I want to commend the administration. I want to commend the curriculum department, and I want to commend the teachers for being so proactive on taking on this. This was not easy as far as the teachers and administrators taking on, and I see a lot of great things going on in the classroom. The students are engaged, and you'll see from building to building, a first grade in one building is pretty much on the same page on the next building, and so we've got a lot of continuity within the buildings. The one thing that just totally amazes me all the time is the vocabulary that I see first, second, third graders being exposed to. It's just unreal. And then I would also like to mention that I attended the West High Extravaganza, where the choirs from Walcott, Smart, and Williams, along with the West High choirs, performed. And again, it's just great to see so much talent. And I just give these kids credit for all of what they're doing and participating. Again, something that we need a lot more of is the participation in extracurriculars. I also attended the Central Jazz Band performance, and there the Sudlow sixth grade jazz band performed. The combined 7th and 8th grade jazz band performed. And then the Central Jazz Bands performed. And I did not know this, but there are 3 Central Jazz Bands, and many of these musicians play multiple instruments, and it just blows me away. It was just, again, so amazing to see that talent on display. I want to thank the band directors for all they do and all the work they put into this. And I believe there was a competition this last Saturday. And then I think previous Saturday, they also performed and won numerous awards. One other thing, I attended the inclusion program at West High. I want to thank the staff and the students for creating a special week for our very special students. And then I also had a chance to pop in at the student built home and got to see how the progress is coming on that house. And again, I appreciate all the hard work that's being put into that.
Thank you. Anybody else? I also, I did attend this morning the John Deere University of Iowa Scholarship. 20 students brought in. They had no idea really why they were there. And the look on their faces when they realized they were getting a 90% tuition, room and board, books, everything covered. It was incredible experience. And this collaboration is going to be done for 20 students the next year and then the year following. So thank both John Deere and University of Iowa. It was amazing. I also went to the show choir show off this morning. Excellent. If you're done listening to the board meeting, 7 o'clock down at the Adler tonight. Great. Our students are exceptional when it comes to their show choirs. Okay.
I have one board report.
Director Beck?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to give a shout out to the McKinley staff and for an excellent multicultural day. I was able to spend the morning there visiting the around the world food tasting in the gym, and the Davenport Library had students doing an activity in the McKinley Library, and then the Central Jazz Bands performed 2 of them in the cafe. And I will echo what Director Poston said. The jazz bands are amazing. They had multiple students playing multiple instruments. They picked music that was relevant to the activity. They even had bongos. So it was really an incredible experience. And this was the 20th anniversary of McKinley's Multicultural Day. It's a great event where students get to travel around the world. And the students who come from all over the world that attend McKinley, I think, probably feel a little bit more included because there is this celebration of where everybody comes from. So thank you to them, and I hope that tradition continues for a while.
Thank you. Next up is open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak, please fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The form is available in hard copy for in-person attendees or on the school board page of the district's web page for those who want to participate virtually. Virtual participants must email the request to Brenda T. at tbren@davenportschools.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president may set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak. Tonight it will be 2 minutes because I have 9 open forums here. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. You'll be asked to state your name and home address prior to making remarks. Please note that board meetings are recorded and the recordings are available online. To participate virtually, call 1-312-626-6799 and enter meeting ID 923-8778-8720 and passcode 124275. Okay, first up, and I'll tell you the first two, James Greer, and then followed by Keenan Hutchison. Yep, push the button and it'll turn green. State your name and address and you'll have 2 minutes.
James Greer, 1222 Eastover Court, Davenport, Iowa, 52803. Stays green, perfect. All right, so I'm a graduate of West High School in 2002. And since then, I've been in mechanics, I've been in welding, I've been in construction work my whole life. And I can definitely tell you one thing for the class times allotted with classes in school right now. If we go to a lesser time, I can tell you from going through a hands-on mechanical background, I do wish in my time in high school I paid more attention to my math classes and my English classes. But I needed things back then that were more application specific for me. Right triangles, for example, geometry, I love it. I failed geometry in high school, and as an instructor for an apprenticeship program for pipe fitters, I now teach basic geometry and trigonometry to apprentices to apply it to very expensive materials and very expensive timelines and criteria. I've been responsible bidding work, $280,000 to $1 million jobs. I really wish I'd paid more attention to English when I was in high school because it did apply to me in my career, but not until I was about 30 years old. And so that is something that also people in the audience, the students here, do your best in all the classes that you do attend because you never really know where that will be applied to later as an adult. But I do request that more effort be made, or not maybe effort, but open-mindedness to saying the curriculum and the objectives to be met in English taught courses, could the curriculum objectives be somehow slotted into more of the vocational welding program so that if a student needs the English reinforced lessons, could those objectives be met in a hands-on class versus an English taught specific course? Because if the objective is met, doesn't matter if it's in a sports class or art class or an English class, as long as the objective is met. I know that's crazy. I know that's a can of worms because there's a lot of objectives and lesson plans to be met. And as an instructor myself, I understand the challenges within a lesson plan to get through the day with 20 plus people in class. It's a challenge. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Keenan Hutchison.
Left the microphone on for me. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Keenan Hutchison from 1835 West 68th Street, Davenport, Iowa, 52806. I'm a Davenport resident with 2 children currently in the school district and a daughter who will soon be old enough to attend the district. I'm a graduate of Davenport West High, as well as the vocational welding program, and I was once a student school board member like those behind me. I understand firsthand the value of trade programs taught within Davenport schools. I'm also a local employer who hires students from the district and helps build apprenticeship programs. In fact, just today, I called a student from the West High Vocational Auto Program and offered him a position at our company. That's the kind of opportunity these programs create, but only if they are given the time and structure to succeed. I am here tonight because I strongly oppose the proposal to shift high school classes from a 90-minute block to a 45-minute period, especially for trade programs. Simply put, 45 minutes is not enough. Students in trade classes need time to put on their protective gear and prepare. Teachers need time to teach, demonstrate, and follow up with the students. Students need hands-on practice, real meaningful time to apply their skills, troubleshoot problems, and gain confidence. At the end of the class, they need time to properly clean up tools and remove their PPE. If this isn't done right, it costs the school money and time and lost equipment and wasted material. Beyond technical skills, trade teachers also teach students how to fill out applications, prepare for interviews, and understand employer expectations, critical life skills that set them up for the success after graduation. When you factor all this in, 45 minutes is completely unrealistic. How can a student discover a passion for welding or auto repair or construction when they only get 10 to 15 minutes of actual hands-on time per class? If we want to set our students up for real-world success, we need to give them the time to learn, practice, and grow. I urge you to keep the 90-minute block schedule in place for these trade programs. It is an investment in these students' futures and whole and in the workforce community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kelly Fredrickson, followed by Tucker Blankenship. Hope I said that right. Please state your name and address. Oh, just push the button. You can just leave it green for the whole time.
There it is. Kelly Fredrickson, 1558 Sherrard, Illinois. Want to thank you for having us here. I am the Vice President of McLaughlin Body. We've been working with Davenport West for 5 years on these trade programs. I'm not sure why I understand why we would change a program that works so well. I have 3 examples, Andrew. Just graduated trade school from Blong Technology as a journeyman toolmaker. Haley, right next to him, is now going through the apprenticeship program started January. Jada is going through mechanics program. She wants to be a pipe fitter. We're paying for all this. We want these kids to be successful. So I don't understand why we're changing the allotted time limit. It doesn't make sense to me. I am a trades program kid. That's where I came from. And I've worked my way through it. So I would please ask you not to change the block to a period. It means so much to the kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tucker Blankenship, 729 4th Street, Buffalo, Iowa. I'm currently in my 3rd year of high school enrolled at Davenport West. This being said, I'd like to speak on some foreseen changes being made to the schedule. Our current 4 blocks are returning into 8 periods. The reason I'm speaking on this today is that since the beginning of my sophomore year, I've been working in the evenings after school. During this time, the 4th blocks have given me the flexibility to never have to do homework due to having time in class. I'd like to ask how this 8-period schedule will affect kids like me that work. I work to help to take the burden off my grandparents who sacrificed their only chance at retirement to raise me. I value my education, but the only thing I see from this change is shortened curriculums. I would like you to see how this would affect me and many kids like me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Robert Ewald, followed by Tony Reimers.
Thank you. Rob Ewald, 10386 130th Street, Davenport, Iowa. Just want to come up and again speak out against changing over to the bell schedule from the block schedule. I have some graphs here I'd love to share with you guys. showing where your CTE program stands just at West High with state average, and it is way above. That's the only point on this chart that is above the state average. That program. This program will be affected negatively by the length of time for these feeder classes that are going to come into this program. I truly believe that we have to look out for all of these students. Be honest, after my last conversation here, we went and looked at open enrollment because I want to go to some place that's going to invest in my children's future. Right now, changing this does not invest in a lot of these kids' future out there. We need, we talk about minorities. This is higher than the state average. Minorities that are in this program at West High School, and you're going to try to destroy it. I know it's unintended consequences. I get it, but what we were promised way back when you all voted on this was that it would not affect these people. It is. We need to call for a vote to rescind or something. Talk to your parliamentarian. You need to come up with something. You can't just say we've got too much time put into this to not go forward with it. That's an excuse. That's not an explanation on why you changed something. You need to change it what's going to be right for all your students. And I think that's what you need to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Hi, Tony Reimers, 3419 Kyoto Avenue, Davenport, Iowa. I'm a high school welding apprentice at John Deere Davenport Works. I am one of the students of the welding program. I stand before you today to express our deep concern regarding the recent proposal to cut our block schedule down to 45-minute periods. The change, if implemented, will have a devastating effects on not just our education, but the future of our entire career and technical education program. We all know the purpose of the CTE courses, such as welding, construction, and auto shop, is to provide students with hands-on, real-world experience that prepares us for careers. These are not typical lecture-based subjects. In welding, for example, it takes time to set up equipment, understanding safety procedures, complete projects, and gain the skills necessary to succeed. If we're reduced to just 45 minutes per class, we will spend most of that time just getting ready to start working and barely any time actually learning and applying the skills we need. Forcing us into these cramped time slots is not just inefficient, it's disrespectful to the effort and dedication it takes to master these crafts. Welding students won't even have time to set up their machines and get their personal protective equipment on before class is over. Auto students won't even finish one task before the bell rings. Construction students will not have time to even cut the boards out that they need for the class. How is that preparing us for real-world careers in these fields? This change is not just an inconvenience, it's an attack on the future of students who want to build careers in these vital industries. We need more time, not less. We need a schedule that reflects the work ethic, commitment, and dedication the CTE students demonstrate every day. If we lose our block schedule, we will lose our opportunity to truly develop the skills that will shape our future. I urge you to reconsider this decision before it irreparably damages the quality of our education and the CTE programs that so many of us rely on to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Andy Zinn and then Brian Feltz.
Made me think I had to wake up. That's my alarm clock. Noise. Andy's in 3505 West Locust, Davenport, Iowa. I'm here tonight not because I want to be. I really don't want to be, but because Davenport CTE kids and their futures are being backed into a corner, and somebody has to come out and fight for them because they don't have the parents to fight for them. They just don't have that. They don't know what's going on here and what that effect is going to be next year. So we're all on the same page. CTE instructors were consulted one time on this issue, and we all said unanimously we need the block schedule for multiple reasons. The first one being the safety in our classrooms. Those kids rushing around in a 45-minute period is not a safe environment, and this comes from somebody who taught on the 55-minute period years and years ago. It is a very stressful environment, and now these kids are going to be rushing even faster. Excuse me. The second point is the time to actually accomplish what we're doing. Take it from me. We're in the classrooms. We know what it takes to get things done. Jake, you were in some of our classes. I remember you from way back then. The time is just not sufficient to be able to learn. When the teachers unanimously agreed that, hey, we need that block schedule, that was the end of it. We thought that we had been heard. We thought that the voice was sent loud and clear. Yes, thank you for that input. It's going to be taken into account. That's what we thought were happening. We didn't know anything until January 13th when an email came out and said we're going to 45-minute periods. That was our first notification that things had changed. That's not fair. That's why we're behind the 8 ball here tonight, having to fight for these classes. That should have been made clear to all of us way before, so we could have talked to you way before. As disturbing as that email was to receive, it's, I would say, nowhere near as disturbing as the phase 2 idea that's being floated as a solution. That's defeat. This group has been meeting for years on this topic, and they're floating a phase 2 to try and solve the problems that they can't solve now. Why would we have any confidence that those will be solved moving forward? Darn it.
Thank you. Brian Phelps.
Hi, I'm Brian Feltz, 1623 Tanglefoot Lane. I'd like to just say about the same thing all the other folks before me were saying. I am a welding and construction instructor at Central High School. I would really like to push the safety thing on this. We've never in Davenport, we've never had 8 periods a day. And I went to the Davenport schools when we went from periods to blocks. It was seven periods a day. They were almost an hour long. But being involved in construction, welding, shop stuff my entire life, cutting those kids loose, and the proposal that they laid out at our last professional development meeting was that they'd have approximately 20 minutes of lab time. I want you to picture kids in a shop when they're doing oil changes, we'll say. You've got one instructor trying to watch 4 lifts while kids are getting the car up in the air, and they've got 20 minutes to get them up in the air. How long is it going to be before we drop a car? Or a kid runs his hand through a table saw? Or, God knows what, got a fire in the welding shop. I mean, there's hazards everywhere. And all we're doing by cutting these classes down to 40, 45 minutes, we're doubling their setup and cleanup time. And they're going from an hour lab time down to 20 minutes. I mean, it's going to decimate the program. We don't have any of the capstone programs in my field at Central High School, but that's the feeder for everything that we've got rolling there. So I'd really like to push the safety thing here. And just because we're this deep into it, just because the airplane's in the air, if the airplane's on fire and going to crash, we need to seriously examine what's going on. And like Andy said about phase 2, if there's a reason for phase 2, that means we're not ready for phase 1 currently. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And finally, Corey Carter.
My name is Corey Carter. My address is 1601 Eagle Crest Avenue. I think that's the address. I've lived so many different places. As I researched for this open forum speech, I saw the phrase portrait of a Davenport graduate. So here I am in the flesh. What really makes up a Davenport graduate? I come from a single parent household. Food stamps fill my fridge. I'm a minority of all the challenges that come with that. I've been around drugs, I've been around guns, I've been around alcohol, and I've been around the prison life. It goes without saying that I have had plenty of paths I could have followed, but I chose one of our industrial tech classes in high school. Because of that choice and the same choices made by many of my friends, we now have options in our lives. I can be a diesel mechanic if I want to. I can be a welder if I want to. I can be a construction guy if I want to. All choices that wouldn't have been made there for me if Davenport had 45-minute classes with 20 minutes of work, which is nearly not enough time to get anything done. By having a block schedule like me, kids like me are able to experience success. For many of us, it is our very first time experiencing success. This block schedule allows us to enjoy working with our hands, try and failing, and try again to succeed. Build relationships with our teachers who really care about us and having a place in this world, and leaving class most days feeling like we've had a successful day and with hope for our future. I may be wearing my fancy hat and sporting my produce business swag, but without those 90-minute blocked industrial tech classes to help me learn I could succeed. I'm not 100% sure I would have been able to avoid all those other paths that I could have gone down. 45-minute classes are going to ruin these opportunities for all these new kids like me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the consent agenda. Could I have a motion? Anybody like to make a motion on the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move the consent agenda be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions?
I have a quick question. I'm wondering if on the next bill listing, when we receive that, if we could have the project attached to the Bill Bruce Builders payments, seeing almost $1 million, and with as many projects as we're doing with Bruce Construction, I'd love to know how those are delineated, if at all possible.
And I think Kevin actually has an answer tonight on that $1 million one.
Yeah, luckily for us, that $1 million one is 100% subload. It's all their startup costs.
But yes, in the future, we'll be sure that it's broken down so we know which projects it's going towards. Any other questions? Director Beck, do you have a question? No. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, I am doing a little switch here. We're going to have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam President. Will you go to the other one? Thank you, Chief. So I was leaving for a meeting a couple weeks ago when I was approached by the ProStar students who their capstone class is in the basement of this building. And they walked up with that delicious array. And they wanted me to try this ahead of their competition. And it was unbelievable. When you go out to Duck City or any other fine restaurant, this food compared to that. And so I sat down and I tasted it. Actually, there wasn't a crumb left on any of the plates when I was done. It was that delicious. And they were heading into their competition. And if you go to the next slide, T, that team went on to win first place at the Iowa Pro Start Invitational. And so not only did I find it delicious, so did an entire arena find it delicious as well. So I'm very proud of the work and accomplishment that they've done for that award. Up next, you heard one of our board members talk about a recent appointment. And so, Eric, if you wouldn't mind joining me at the podium, we have Mr. Eric Johnson. He was just voted in as the principal, the new principal at Davenport North. We're incredibly excited to have Eric as the leader at North. He's done quite a few jobs here in Davenport schools. Most recently, he served at Williams, where he's done an outstanding job. One of the highlights that he has done there is he is turning instruction into a teacher-focused component at Williams, and I couldn't be more proud. when a lot of times when we go through the interview process, and I'll share a little bit about it, but we have different panels, and very rarely do those different panels unanimously agree. And Mr. Johnson, I want you to know that that community unanimously picked you, and we're incredibly proud to have you as our next principal at Davenport North. So help me welcome you.
I would like to thank you guys for allowing me this opportunity, but I'd also like to tell you I'm incredibly nervous about the task I have to take. It's not one of those that I take lightly. I have two of my own children in this district. Hearing all those guys, especially students, talk about the structure change that we're about to undertake with our high school schedule, it's one of those that carries a lot of responsibility, and we owe it to all those people to make sure that we're making choices that impact everyone in a positive manner instead of make negative choices for them. So, again, thank you guys for allowing me to be the next principal at North High School. Go Wildcats.
Thank you. And last but not least, the John Deere Scholarship this morning. To quote John Flynn, one of the coolest experiences in his 30-year career. And it was built as a surprise. And so the students to come, and they thought they were giving feedback to the program so far. And this place was set up in a very beautiful way. And when the students walked in, a very unassuming group of students. And so the vice president of the University of Iowa was there. The vice president of John Deere's marketing team was there. And so they kind of knew, but it didn't hit them until the very end of the presentation. And the second that happened, the entire mood in the room changed. And one of the things that the theme for the day was changing a family tree on an instant. And that's exactly what that is doing. The stories that are coming out of their students who are going to med school, who would never have had that opportunity. I heard one student say, I know that when I graduate and I become wealthy, I'm going to start my own scholarship. And so that's the kind of thing giving forward that does. And it was a truly wonderful event. I would really like to thank the John Deere Foundation, who has been working for a decade to set this up. And it truly shows the giving nature of the John Deere employees and the John Deere community. And also the University of Iowa for bending over backwards to make sure that those students are successful. So just a truly blessed program that we have. And that concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you. Next up, our committee reports. Do you know if there's breaking barriers?
No.
Okay. Legislative advocacy.
The last two Saturdays, I attended a couple town hall meetings put on by Representative Kaufman and Senator Gruenhagen. And the legislative committee met with these representatives earlier, about 2-3 weeks ago, and we proposed to them a bill, and it does have a number now. It's House Bill 311, and it's called the Management Fund for School Safety Bill. And so, as many of you probably are aware of, we have purchased metal detectors for our high schools and intermediate schools. But and we had that money to purchase that. But what we're looking for is money to run the machines, oversee the machines, pay for subscription fees, and that sort of thing. We're not asking for more money. We're asking for that money to come out of the management fund. So I just want to thank Representative Kaufman, Senator Gruenhagen, and then Representative Vondran is the floor manager of this bill. So we're hoping that that will get through. It's being run through the Ways and Means Committee, so that avoided the funnel, and so we're waiting for the outcome on that. I would also add that from IASB, there is a list right now that got through the funnel. There's 90 bills pertaining to school, pertaining to schools that survived the funnel. So there's a lot of school education bills out there that the legislature will be acting on.
Thank you. Director Beck, Local School Advisory Committee.
We have not met since the last report.
Thank you. Long Range Facility Planning, Director Potts.
We just had a construction update at our meeting today, and the committee is meeting Friday.
Thank you. Policy, we will be meeting in April. Recognition, we haven't met since the last board meeting. Finance.
Finance Committee will be meeting on March 20th, and I think at this time Kevin's going to present on the key measures and budget.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Brenda, if you'll start with the monthly report. Thank you. Made some highlights there as I usually do. I just wanted to point out, if you remember the last 2 years, we've been talking about ESSER funds and how the pendulum is going to swing the other way. So when you look at comparison years to this new year, where we had just the carryover ESSER funds that we finished receiving and spending, you'll see that our federal revenue went from 17.8 to 17.6 to 4.6. So it's a $13 million swing. That is 100% due to the ESSER funds that we received year to date as of January. I didn't highlight January, but this is through January. Also, you'll notice on the bottom of that page, the impact of that is you'll see our surplus deficit year to date of revenues versus expenditures. It's negative. It's nothing to get alarmed about. Typically, that is a normal year. Just the last 2 years when we've been receiving ESSER funds, that has been a higher amount month over month. This will correct itself. You have to remember this is January, so in March and part of April, we will be receiving the second half, the majority of the second half of property taxes. So there's just a timing difference between those. Also on the next page, when we get into the other funds, I just wanted to point out on the other fund, Fund 30, that is our construction fund of all the projects that Josh was talking about. The majority of those, you'll see that there's a balance of $65 million. If you just go down just a hair more, that is what's remaining of the $80 million that we borrowed a year and a half ago, or just over almost a year ago. And the other thing I wanted to point out is our internal funds. We have a net deficit year to date. I was really confused about that at first, but then I got to looking at when our payments were made to Wellmark. January happened to have a 5-week payment period, so there's just a timing difference in the weekly draws that Wellmark has done. We always keep an eye on that to make sure that our balance is healthy, but it was just something that popped out to me of why do we have $1.3 million more of expense than we do revenue. So that's the net effect of that. I'm going to go on to the
Kevin?
Yes.
Can I interrupt you just a second? So on the other fund 30, the revenue, is that interest on the construction loan?
Yes.
Okay.
On the key measures, you'll see that we're sitting at a projected 21% UAB. I believe that's a little bit high because we've got some heavy months between February and May, and then we have end of year where we do all of our accruals. So it's still going to be a little bit higher than the prior year, but it's starting to level off a lot more. And you'll see relational, you'll see that our percent of our unspent authorized budget is projected to be at 93.4%. You'll notice from past years that number is growing. That's the percentage that I keep saying we're getting closer and closer to 100%. We want to get there gradually. We don't want to rush to that number, but we will get there in the next year to 2 years. It should be somewhere around 94 to 95%. You can see I budgeted at approximately 95. So we're getting close. The third thing on this page one that I wanted to reference is AEA flow through. It doesn't look like a lot. That number went from 7 million to 6 million because of the percentage that the state said is not flow through dollars anymore. When we get into next year, you're going to see a number that goes from that 6 million down to 600,000 because that will be the only flow through that we're going to see from the state. So there's going to be some movement of how we receive those funds and where those funds get expended. But this is one of the reports that you'll see going forward will change for FY26. And then the last thing on page 2, I want to note, while we're talking construction is kind of a theme, you'll see that there's 2 negative amounts in our estimates. The biggest one in other is our capital projects. About 18 months ago is when we were projecting how we were going to spend all of our dollars. It's going a little bit faster than what I projected, but we'll do an amendment, but it's due by the end of May. When that May amendment comes, we'll have a better idea of what that is. The support services are just the miscellaneous of everything that is not instruction and is not construction and is not food nutrition. Those are what the 4 categories are. So we'll be doing an amendment. It doesn't affect taxes, doesn't affect anything. It's just to notify the public that this is an amount not to exceed of where we will be spending in the entire district. And that concludes my report.
Any questions? I do have a couple. Next year, when we have less AEA flow through, and we will make the decisions, and this may be to you, on what we are going to purchase, which services, will that just come out of the general fund? Will there be a separate line that we will create, or how is that?
It will still be general fund. I have yet to see from Department of Management how that expenditure is going to go. I'm going to guess it's going to come in the support services, because when you think about the largest majority of that is special education, and those are support services to our students. So the majority of it will be in that line. So I'm going to see kind of a shift going from an other line to support services. Plus, on the revenue side, what we will see is we'll see a bump in our property tax because it was taken from us because it was flow through. So they took it from us and it'll be giving it back.
And speaking of property tax, there is a bill out there, but they're not going to act on it for 2 weeks. They want input from schools and cities and counties. One thing that they're talking about is the management fund, SAVE. We're all being addressed in that. Are we looking at that, how that's going to affect us? Are we giving them our feedback, or who is doing that? I have no idea, but that's why I'm throwing it out there.
The majority of that conversation about from a strictly 100% pure financial, we'll be working with ISB on addressing a lot of those. We'll also go through our Iowa Association of School Business Officials. We'll be having a meeting here in a few weeks, and there'll be a lot of conversation about that. So there'll be various avenues to address that.
Okay. Director Boston.
So when I met with Representative Kaufman, he is chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and he is kind of the sponsor along with the Ways and Means Senate committee member. And they're kind of throwing this out for public comment right now. And so they're going to take a look at this over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. And but it will be a major, if it would go through, it would be a major change as far as property taxes are concerned.
The one thing I'll add to that, you're right, Kent, for them to do it right now for next year is not going to happen. So when you hear these things, this will probably be a year out. I do appreciate the flexibility in the management fund. This is also why when you go back to that other report, you're going to see some balances are a little bit higher than normal, but it's also planning for, so we have those resources should something like this become available to us. So it could be very beneficial to us in some ways.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Next up, items requiring action. Could I have a motion and a second on the tentative agreement with the maintenance employees?
Madam President,
Director Potts.
I move the board approve the tentative agreement reached with the maintenance and ratified by the unit for the wage reopener for 7/1/25, 6/30/26 of the collective bargaining agreement in effect through 6/30/26.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, I need a motion and a second for the tentative agreement with Food and Nutrition Services.
Madam President,
Director Potts.
I move the board approve the tentative agreement reached with AFSCME Food and Nutrition Services and ratified by the unit for the collective bargaining agreement in effect from 7/1/25 to 6/30/28.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next up, I need a motion and a second to the tentative agreement with
Madam President,
the pairs. Director Potts.
I move the board approve the tentative agreement reached with the AFSCME paraeducators and ratified by the unit for the collective bargaining agreement in effect from 7/1/25 to 6/30/28.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next up is the tentative agreement with custodial security and warehouse.
Madam President,
Director Potts.
I move the board approve the tentative agreement reached with AFSCME Custodial Warehouse Security and ratified by the unit for the collective bargaining agreement in effect from 7/1/25 to 6/30/28.
Is there a second?
Second.
Director Barnes, thank you. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next up is the tentative agreement with Davenport Education Association, the teachers. Director Potts.
Okay. I move the board approve the tentative agreement reached with the Davenport Education Association and ratified by the unit for the collective bargaining agreement in effect from 7/1/25 to 6/30/28.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next up, motion for non-bargaining group salaries.
Madam President,
Director Potts.
I move the board approve a wage package increase of 3% for non-bargaining group as previously discussed for the 25-26 fiscal year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, administrator group salaries.
Madam President,
Director Potts.
I move the board approve a wage package increase of 3% for the administrators group as previously discussed for the 2025-26 fiscal year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And finally, the cabinet administrator group salaries.
Madam President,
Director Potts.
I move the board approve a wage package increase of 3% for the cabinet administrators group as previously discussed for the 2025-26 fiscal year.
Could I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. I would just like to comment, I was on the negotiation team for all of those. It was very productive. I know it sounds weird to say I really enjoyed it, but I did enjoy it. Okay. Discussion items. Classroom furniture replacement at Garfield, Jackson, and McKinley.
Thank you, Josh.
Following our long-range facilities plan, phase 1 projects, we were discussing putting new furniture in every classroom. Garfield, Jackson, McKinley are next on the list. We will be putting those furniture pieces out for bid and meeting with them starting soon. Actually, we've already started meeting with them, but the stuff will be put out for bid soon. The budget for that project would be about $1.5 million coming out of the SAVE budget, and this would be completed this summer. Any questions?
Any questions? Director Beth, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, we will move on. Dump truck purchase.
So again, in following our budget for replacement, we're looking to replace our one of our dump trucks we currently have. It is not a lot of miles on the vehicle, but it is a lot of years of usage. I believe it's around a 2008 model, so looking to be about a 15 or 16-year-old vehicle with a lot of abuse. We haul mulch, salt, sand, tree debris. We plow snow with this truck. It's just at the end of its life, so things are starting to fall apart. It's time to replace it. Lindquist Ford is who we look to get it from locally, and they've come with the best bid. Any
questions? What color are we getting? White?
It's always white.
How about red? Any other comments? Nope. Okay.
Is the old truck functioning currently, or is it completely out of commission?
It works.
Okay. Next up, update on high school schedule.
Thank you. Tonight we have Diane Campbell, Director of Learning and Results, John Flynn, Executive Director of the Central Region, and with us online tonight is Director Barney, Executive Director Barney of the North Region. He is currently watching his daughter play basketball. He plays for Coastal Carolinas, trying to make the NCAA tournament, and so he's joining us on Zoom. And so tonight we've put together a presentation to talk about where we are with our high school schedule. So I'll turn it over to you, Diane.
Thank you very much this evening.
And I'm actually, thank you, Superintendent Schneckloff.
And Dr. Barney is going to kick it off for us.
I'll continue. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, Diane. And thank you, board. This is, as you guys know, we started this journey last year with some initial conversations. And then as the year went on, we began bringing a lot of folks from around the district together to support this work. It's really important to recognize that the schedule in any district is just the vehicle by which we've talked about this previously. It's the vehicle by which we support all of the instructional pieces, all the MTSS needs, all the opportunities that we make available to our students in this educational journey. And obviously, there are aspects of a schedule that can make those experiences less effective, and there are aspects of a schedule that can strengthen them. And so the intent of any work is to try to figure out what gets us to the place where we feel like we're in that sweet spot, meeting our students and our staff's needs. The schedule that we began to identify is reflective of elements that are, half of our state, or not even half of our state, a portion of our state follows a block schedule. On the other portion of our state follows a traditional schedule. And there are some that do a combination of the two, but everything that we're attempting to accomplish in this schedule exists in another schedule somewhere. And I think those pieces in reflection of the conversation earlier are important to take into consideration. And so when we go through this today, we're just going to provide you kind of an update of kind of, again, a reflection of where we started at and an update of where we're at. Our schedule, again, is designed to meet the needs of students at multiple levels through those intervention and enrichment opportunities. And it should allow us to provide some collaborative opportunities, some opportunities to analyze data and then see the impact of that on the backside. Ultimately, wanting to drive achievement, drive engagement, drive equity and efficiency across that piece. So looking at that second slide there, we kind of started that process with those four key assumptions in mind of making sure that we got those ELA and math courses spread across a year long, wanting to identify are there other courses that could benefit from a semester long and year long experience, more time spent on quality academic instruction, and again, as pointed out by our students earlier, or I guess our adults earlier, the importance of those relationships. Those will always be key. We know over the last 3 to 4 years, our graduation rate has kind of hovered in that 72 to 73 range. So what steps can we take to begin to support that? The board has identified or supported a handful of initiatives thus far. When we look at the core diploma, that is going to be something that's going to support our graduation rate. And then as we began looking at the schedule and identifying the best, an additional vehicle to support that work. And so we know that our state tests certain subjects and that those subjects at different points, whether we're talking about the ACT or Iowa assessments, that those tests are at a particular time of the year. And if we end learning associated with those tests prior to those tests with a significant gap in between, we know that the results of those tests can be impacted. We know that we need to continue looking at challenging courses and the continued opportunities to support students in those courses as the year goes on, and especially when we start looking at that 9th and 10th grade, as research is abundantly clear that looks at the likelihood of students, as they are less successful in those freshman year, graduating from high school, they're more likely to drop out than to graduate if they're not successful in that freshman year. So those things become issue. We identifying opportunities for those enrichment opportunities, whether it's or acceleration opportunities, whether it's a student that is far behind, having the opportunity to accelerate forward, or whether it's a student that is performing at level and has the capability of increasing their pace and accelerating them forward. So that high school schedule supports all that work. And the strategic schedule that we've been working on, amplifies those priorities and puts us in the best position to support best practices in teaching and learning to increase student engagement. Looking at the next slide, our Growing Excellent plan. Those goals are centered on these identified here with our emotional safety score, continuing to increase that, supporting our high school students and our elementary students and our middle school students. We know that by June of 2025 on each of these, we wanted to achieve that 80% proficiency on advanced scores on the ISAS in reading and math, and I would say exceeding that state average growth. We wanted to reduce our in-school and out-of-school suspensions around and related to student groups by decreasing to targeted high-ranking behavior at each level. And we know that engaged students are less likely to become behavior issues as well. So how do we increase that engagement there? Which is also tied into our absenteeism rating as well. We want that to be below the state average. And then also, we want to see that 100% of our students in ninth grade will earn at least 6.5 credits and be on pace to graduate. And that's, again, a reflection of how important that ninth grade year is. Looking at that next slide there, this is the journey that we've kind of been on here from beginning to end with the exploration of those year-long courses and those priorities that we had identified earlier. And so again, I want to remind us that we began this process last year. And now there's been conversation in the district probably since the beginning of the block schedule coming into play, in which folks have had thoughts about what would it look like to no longer be underneath the block schedule. But the actual work looking at the enhanced schedule began last year, and we started to evaluate the different ways that we could better serve our students. And that's how we began looking at best practice research that was out there and the elements that they recommended, and began meeting with our stakeholders to gather this information. And Diane's going to talk a little bit more about those groups, but we know that, throughout the journey in some form or fashion at different points in times, we've had a wide range of folks around the table in discussions. Not everybody can be at every single discussion that takes place, but we've had lots of people throughout this process, and to the point that we were able to make a decision on the next steps. And that was just presented to the board just this year. And then once we identified what that enhanced schedule looked like, the next steps were to begin to create that schedule and what those pieces were. And that's where we're at now with our implementation teams and creating these pieces. And so as we look a little bit further, you'll begin to see those essential elements we identified, and the priorities that came out of the stakeholder groups, and the ways that we were able to meet those priorities in this schedule, and then the next steps that we continue with here.
Thank you, Dr. Barney. And being able to share that journey and where it started, looking at that discovery process, the research, getting the teams together, and being able to start looking at that implementation of what the high school schedule is going to be. This next slide is a timeline of the work, and it even starts with February of 2024, but I'm going to take us back even a year before that. There was an infrastructure team that started meeting in June of 2023, and the conversations that team was having, and it included high school teachers, principals, myself, ILDs, just discovering and discussing what we want the learning experience to be for our high school students. What is that vision, and what does that look like and sound like for our students that are in high school? So during that time, it was really creating that vision of experiences. It became clear at one point that we had some infrastructure pieces that we needed to be looking at, which was, again, the high school schedule. And you can see with this timeline, and that led us into the first meeting of the advisory task team of 32 participants in February of 2024. This task team, our goal was to determine the current schedule, if the current schedule meets the needs of our students, and identify the elements of the schedule that would increase those positive outcomes for all students. This advisory team of 32 members represented a broad array of stakeholders, including teachers, parents, students, and leaders. This team spent the time reviewing best practices, what the current literature says about schedules, and provided feedback on a variety of different schedules, ultimately selecting sample schedules that we took for further community input, which included going to every single high school, getting input from teachers. We also sent survey information out to students, and then we held 5 community meetings during that time. So with the assumptions that this team had used, it included that research has determined that no one type of schedule is the best, that students benefit from equitable access to rigor and high expectations, no matter what schedule is selected, and that strategic scheduling is best accomplished as a team. With that, once we went through, it was clear after getting all of this input that, again, there wasn't one schedule that was going to meet our needs. Instead, it was about the key essential elements. And those key essential elements were a way for us to move forward with a schedule that was going to ensure positive outcomes for students. You can see from February all the way through December of 2024 is where this team did the bulk of the work in phase one. So this is just capturing that timeline that we started in August, what the timeline looks like with the work of a schedule. So update graduation requirements in August. September, we're looking at the course guide. Campus programming, updating new and archived courses. Then in October is the timeline that we would bring a course guide to the board for approval. And then students can start registering for courses. And then students complete the course registration process in February. So the high school schedule is really an interdependent. It's not just one. It's not like a high school schedule and you can create it in a master schedule and it goes. There's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes. So this timeline outlays what that work is. So this next slide is really going over that process again. Input was received from parents, students, and teachers and administrators. That consensus across all stakeholder groups on those elements that a schedule would possess for the current schedule does not allow for. So the current schedule that we have does not allow for that intensified instruction opportunities for students across the entire learning spectrum, which includes the enrichment and the interventions. Increased student choice and opportunities in courses. So finding that schedule that's going to provide a balance for not only student choice and being able to get some exploration in there and see offer multiple opportunities for students, but that voice piece really in that vision creating space and opportunity for students to tell us what courses they're interested in. Our game is changing every single day. There are jobs created today that we didn't even know about a few years ago. And so we need to be nimble in being able to offer the courses that students are going to want to take. And right now we don't have a system to collect the voice of our students and what their interests are compared to what the current reality of the future is with employment and career and college readiness. So that choice and voice is important. And then minimizing the lost learning in the event of an absence. So making sure that we have a schedule that's going to be able to have students, if they miss a day, that they can come back and be all right. With all of this input and that timeline that we just went through, knowing what our district goals are, we identified those key essential elements. And those elements are here, and I'm just going to briefly go over these, and then John is going to take the next couple slides and go in deeper with each of these elements. So we wanted to make sure that ELA and math courses were year-long. This is what best practice would tell us. This wasn't just the team saying this is what we want to see, but best practice, we know we need it year-long. Adequate time for instruction and work. We also wanted that acceleration and intervention or remediation opportunities for students. The student choice in courses, so meaning the periods in the day, allowing them to select the the courses that were available. If we had opportunity for quarter courses, 9-week courses, then that would give more choice there as well. Consistency for a student's schedule. That was something that was loud and clear from the students. They wanted to know this was the day I'm coming to school, and it was a predictable routine for them. Planning for teachers, number of teacher content prompts, and those are items that we want to make sure anytime with any schedule that is being built, that those two areas are essential elements. We want to make sure teacher collaboration is provided and planned for. Right now, we hold it as a rock, like this is something we really want to happen, but we don't build it into the school day. Right now, if there's collaboration time, it's either before school or we have to pay them extra, or we have to build it into a PD day. It's not consistent. So this was an essential element. And then limiting transition times, or using those transition times as an opportunity for students to be able to, again, use transitions. So those are the essential elements. John is going to go into detail of each of those.
Thanks, Diane. Basically, I will be going through the 9 and just highlighting how we were able to meet those essential elements through the schedule. So the first key element was year-long math and ELA courses. With the enhanced schedule, that has been accomplished, and the added bonus, I guess, would be that all of our core courses we were able to move those to year-long, with the exception of some of the science and social studies courses that are really only semester long or one term long now. So that transition was made, and we're able to offer those courses in that manner. The second key element, adequate time for instruction and work. You can see that 45 minutes as an instructional window is what is being put in place. Students are going to have an additional period each day to complete work and get support as needed, and that is the guided study period that we will discuss later as well. Semester classes, there's a rundown of the instructional time that would be offered semester 1 and semester 2. And we're also able to maintain block classes in certain spots for 85-minute courses, and the instructional minutes for those courses is listed as well. So you'll see that there is still a mixture of semester-long and blocked courses in the schedule. Spoke just a minute ago about the acceleration and enrichment opportunities, guided study, and we'll go into depth a little bit later about what that looks like for students grades 9 through 11 and also as 12th graders. But guided study is going to be offered each period. So every student has the opportunity to have that as a portion of their schedule. And it's going to really be a tiered approach. Our high schools have been working very hard on creating MTSS systems to provide assistance when needed, but to provide enrichment and acceleration as well. So this period is something that we will be planning to use in that manner. Continuing down the pathway, number 4, the key element was student choice in courses. We moved to an 8-period day with students taking 7 of 8 with the guided study, as we just discussed. There are courses that will take some special consideration. There are some phase 1. In phase 1, there were some courses that were quarter long that were developed. They are not going to be implemented next year, but they were developed, and we're developing some others. But moving ahead into phase 2, there are several courses that have been identified as not offered this year, but will be offered in future years. So we're looking for ways to integrate that as we move forward as well. Credits decrease over time, but the opportunity for students does not, and I think that's an important piece. As we move into this schedule, there's a graduated decrease in the number of credits that we are requiring, but the opportunity to continue taking courses exists and will continue to exist. I think it's important to note in this key element as well that the courses are being run based on course requests this coming year. So while the shape of a course, maybe from a block to a semester long, may have changed, the ability of students to request those courses and for us to offer them are solely based on the student requests themselves. There has not been an elimination of courses based on the configuration. Key element 5 is consistency, a student schedule remaining predictable. The nice piece with the enhanced block and the 45-minute semester-long course is that it is consistent for a longer period of time. While there's a shorter time each day that the teacher is with the students, we do believe that ability to form a relationship over the course of time is going to be enhanced. Those of us who have taught or been around a block schedule While 85 minutes can be really, really good, it also is a little bit difficult at times when you have a student for 42 days to forge the relationship that you might want to. So that is something that we have been looking at as well. And then planning for teachers, additional time for collaboration and independent planning. Each teacher will have a plan period during the day. And during that plan period, it can be the traditional prep that we've had. It also offers us the ability to schedule a little more creatively so that our teachers have that built-in time, like Diane talked about, to collaborate within their content area or their department. It also provides flexibility for us to allow that to happen across the district as well. So there are some benefits to that, and having 8 periods and 8 different ways to make that flexible just provides a little more leeway for that to occur. Essential element number 7, the number of teacher content preps. Having been around the high school schedule for a long time, it is always the intent of our schedulers to minimize the number of preps that a teacher has. Nobody wants to have somebody teaching 3 different subjects, and I know that our schedulers and our department heads work very hard to make that happen as much as possible, and that will continue to be the case in this scheduling configuration. Teacher collaboration time. Again, schedulers are working hard to assign teachers to a collaborative group, either in building or across district, that will provide the opportunity for collaboration inside the school day, not before or after school, as Diane had said. And again, just a little more flexibility within the schedule to make sure that that happens with that extra time slot. And then lastly, limiting transition times. There's a different way of looking at this, and at face value, it does not limit the times. I mean, we can look at the different configurations, and there are more times within the school day. Our buildings have processes and procedures as part of the building-wide PBIS expectations that are in place, and these are going to have to be reviewed regularly. They're going to have to be retaught. I think it's important to keep in mind, though, that right now, 87% of our high school students have 0 or 1 referral anywhere. So that's 90% of our students that are doing the right things. And this is a chance for them, number one, to move a little bit, which our kids need, and we've heard that. But it also gives them the opportunity to socialize. And we've had some questionnaires that have gone out regarding attendance that have shown that our students value that time, but it will be a matter of teaching, reteaching, and continually reinforcing those expectations in the hallways. So with that said, Diane showed the timeline earlier of the things that occurred after the decision in August. There was a team of teachers, counselors, staff, and administrators that began work on developing and implementing the new enhanced schedule. In December, we started hearing from our buildings that were a number of priority topics that needed to be addressed. Amongst those, and this is a truncated list, but the Bell schedule, guided study hall, how are we going to provide professional learning for our teachers, what will advisory look like? A number of topics were brought to the table that led us to convene a team to make sure that we were providing answers to the questions that were coming up. The team members on this team were our high school principals, our ILDs, some people from Learning and Results, our head counselors, and our building schedulers. So it's important to note that the folks that are responsible for making the day work were at the table in terms of the schedule and those logistical pieces. So that is how that work started. And that team first convened on December 9th of this school year. As a result of that work, it led to some adjustments in the rollout process. Through the work of this team, it was determined that to ensure the new schedule is successful, implementation should be phased in over the course of 2 academic school years rather than just 1. By phasing in that implementation, we anticipate a greater likelihood of positive outcomes for all students, staff, and families. It's important to note here that we're committed to the second phase. We're committed to getting the voices at the table for that work that can help us ensure that in year 2 we have the pieces in a good spot for that rollout. In year 1, second bullet, most courses will roughly be 45 minutes and will be run for 18 weeks. Some courses will remain blocked for 9 weeks. These courses were chosen by the implementation team in year one because the courses met the criteria of requiring a block delivery. In year two, the schedule will be enhanced further to incorporate additional course configurations. This team actually began work today. There was a meeting today on course adjustments and enhancements for the following school year, 26-27. And then part of our new 2-year implementation plan includes professional development on effectively teaching in the 45-minute learning environment. We plan to provide support for our teachers and students throughout this transition. And I think an important connection to make there is that implementation team, really, you could feel the collaborative effort and the importance of having the right voices at the table for that work. Which has led to a good cross-representation within our district for the Phase 2 team moving towards the 26-27 school year. Listed here, and the font is small, are a listing of all the courses that will remain blocked for the 26-27 school year. Important just to note that ROTC, you're looking at really 4 different levels over 4 different terms, and so there's a long list there. But you also notice that there are world language courses offered. There are a number of Eastern Iowa Community College courses offered, a number of CTE courses that will remain blocked, along with some EL courses. Student schedule. I referenced this a little bit earlier in terms of guided study. In grades 9 through 11, every student will be in 7 to 8 classes with a guided study, and there's the caveat, with exemptions, provided for really 2 different criteria. If a student's enrolled in the associate's degree program at North and they do not have space for world language due to those courses, guided study will, and there's a possibility of exemption from guided study. And that's for world language or music courses that they would be prohibited to take if they did not give up their guided study for that reason. The second reason for an exemption would be any student enrolled in 2 music ensembles who need space for world language as well. So guided study will only be exempted in that case if it's replaced by world language or a music course. For our seniors, they, as many schools across the state do, have the opportunity for a condensed schedule, but they need to at least be half-time in order to participate in athletics. For students to be exempt as a senior, they need to be in good academic standing and they need to be on track to graduate and passing all their classes at the time of the exemption. Teachers, their schedules, they're going to be scheduled to teach 6 out of 8 periods, and then they'll have a planning period and a duty period. And the plan period we talked about earlier, that would be a mix of the individual planning time with the ability to collaborate across the district. And the duty period, these are just some examples of things that have happened and that we anticipate happening. But these are the things that could be that 7th period. So you'd have the 6 of instruction, a 7th period of guided study, of plan, and then you would have an 8th period that could be any of these things. But really, the building leadership teams would have the autonomy to look at the needs of the building and to schedule the duty as they saw necessary for the benefit of the students and the staff. And then lastly, the bell schedule. I'd like to start by saying Central, West, and Mid-City were included. North was inadvertently left off the slideshow. The only caveat, and this is on the right-hand side, bullet 4, the difference between North schedules and those of Central, West, and Mid-City is that North elected to go with a 4-minute passing time instead of a 5-minute passing time. But you'll see that the courses listed are 45 minutes in length. The lunch schedules are overlapped by just a little bit of time. And that overlap currently is happening at Central High School, and they've found some benefits to the overlap in terms of traffic pattern, in terms of procedures, and being shored up on those things to ensure that there's an orderly way to go about everything that happens in the lunchroom. But the length of the school day will be extended, not the teacher day, but the instructional day would be extended by 10 minutes. Tentatively, teachers are going to be allowed to come 10 minutes late on Friday. The previous contract allowed for a 10-minute early out, and we had to be creative with that piece. Talked passing periods, talked lunch shifts. Early bird and late bird classes will still be an option as they are now. And advisory is currently planned to be run on Wednesdays with an adjustable schedule, or adjusted schedule, I'm sorry. So just some logistical pieces that the team came together and hammered out. And that is how the plan is to move forward.
Professional learning, just wanted to provide an update with what's happened with professional learning. There was a session on March 3rd, and this provided making the most of 45 minutes. So each specialist, as well as building support team members that oversaw each of the content areas, provided this PD day for our high school teachers. And I would say the average score was a 3.3 from the survey results that were provided. There were 236 responses total across all 4 high schools. And so that just gives a little bit of background information. That district time worked not only on making the most of 45 minutes, but also gave opportunity for the specialists to work with a curriculum tracker so that we can start gathering the scope and sequence information, the instructional moving from a block to what it looks like across a semester or across full year. So all of that is that tracker is a way for us to see which courses have been updated, what teacher teams are going to come together and work on those. We have some departments that are almost done because they started it last fall, and others that were doing some work now, and we have other courses that will be updated over the summer, and the scope and sequence pacing will be available before school starts for sure. So on March 3rd, the district time was in the morning. The building time offered the breakout sessions focusing on the high school schedule and the teacher, and then there was teacher time provided to go over and work on various things that would support the schedule. I would also say that in talking with our team, knowing that March 3rd was dedicated for this particular topic, the PD it didn't just start on March 3rd. That first semester there was work being done on scope and sequence. Our HMH, when we had PD and our HMH coaches were coming in or specialists were providing, it was to go over lesson planning and resources, and all of that is still in service of a 45-minute period or the block schedule that's currently happening. So, those pieces of work have also been happening throughout the time. There was also a Q&A document that has been generated, and lots of great questions, mostly around logistics. And so we're working to respond to those and just have a way to create that communication because that's where a lot of the questions are living. We continue to develop those process and procedures for those experiences for all students. We're updating that scope and sequence and pacing guides each time our teachers come together. And then we also have another document that Brianna's developed just on resources. So what resources are in the buildings for the courses that are being taught in the fall? And are there any anticipated needs so that we can get ahead of that and that we're not scrambling, right when school starts to find out that we needed an extra set of X, Y, and Z. So that's another piece that's working behind the scenes with preparing for next year. As John mentioned just a little bit ago, that not only did we put a high school schedule together, but in December opted to go with the 2-year rollout on this. And so I certainly hear and understand the courses that individuals were discussing earlier about needing to be blocked. And we want to make sure that everything is, all our courses are successful for our students. And with the phase 2, it's really bringing the right team back to the table to say, okay, let's problem solve and, get in front of this so that we can develop a 26-27 schedule that will ensure that we have block courses And anytime you have a block, we need to either offer another block right behind it, or we need to have enough quarter courses to pair with that. If we start that work now for the 26-27 school year, we will be in really good shape to be able to ensure success of that level of schedule. We did have our lunch meeting today for phase 2, and this included teachers, administrators, specialists, and counselors, and I said schedulers, and which is a really important piece, because that's, again, all those stakeholders have a different perspective, and they know what goes on to make sure that a master schedule is built, and that it is going to be successful. And so that is, we are going to meet every other week after school on Mondays to get working on that part of the schedule. It also gives us the ability to look at every single course. We offer over 400 courses in our high school course guide. When you go into campus, that means that translates to over 800 courses, because any one course can offer multiple modalities. It can include an online version, a credit recovery version. It can include, the face-to-face or our EICC partners. So each time we touch a course, there's the domino effect that goes on behind it. And getting this phase 2 team together is really important, because then we have all the stakeholders around the table to put these puzzle pieces together for the 26-27 school year. We also are going to be in a different position, because when we built this schedule, we created a brand new catalog. And that catalog meant that every single course had to be touched in multiple different ways to build the course master. We have that course master built, we have that catalog built, so now we have the ability to go in and have a sandbox to move things around, to start even looking at that at a deeper level. So I think this phase 2 is really important. I think it's critical to have the various stakeholders together. We've learned lessons along the way that will ensure success. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about the phase 2 work that will be happening. And that is a wrap for the presentation itself, and just wanted to see if there were any questions or any follow-up.
Cohen?
Okay, I got a few questions. Okay, so first of all, the period that's for studying, like the extra period, could that be used for these programs? Like if you're in the program, can you combine those? Is that an option?
Anything's possible.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Pairing a course with the guided study hall, so then that would, and we're talking just 1 year, because in phase 2, for the 26-27 school year, that is the ultimate goal, is to ensure that the courses that were mentioned earlier are on a block, and looking at every single course to see the viability. One of the questions that the launch team actually came up with is, this actually gives us a really good opportunity to say, you know what, here are courses, we have 57 courses that we are not, that will move to a semester course that we originally thought were going to be a block for 25-26 school year, okay? Take those 57 courses, let's make sure we're touching base with all those teachers and all those students to say, what's working, what's not working. We might find that there's 10 of them that say, you know what, this actually is better. So it does give us that bit of a window. I know that we'll find other courses that will say, no, we really need that to be a block, so we can do that. So really, we're looking at 1 year. Could we potentially look at a bridge or something that would offer a guided study hall with a course? I think that's possible.
I think the real concern here is that 1 year is a long time for high school students. I mean, you're only there for 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, for the seniors that are there, that's pretty rough for them. So is there any strategies that they're talking about to maximize that time, like for the vocational classes?
So some of those capstone classes, so a senior would be in courses that would be a block.
Oh, nice. Okay. Also, so in this schedule, you'd be taking maybe 7 classes a year if you took all year long classes. So how would that not affect, because right now you can, people are taking, I mean, up to 10 classes a year, sometimes even more. So they're getting a lot of like smaller classes they're learning. I'm worried that this program might make it so that you are kind of like you have less options, because it says you have less credits that you need to take. How would that not affect like different stuff or different extracurriculars you'd be able to take?
To impact the choices?
Yeah.
Is that okay? I just want to make sure I understand your question. So,
Diane, I think what he's asking, so he's talking about those elective credits, and the elective credits, we do not have the elective credits that would be year long would center in the musics and in language, but the majority of the elective credits that students would choose from would be more of a semester or quarter long class. So you would be able to take a different one in the second semester or in an additional quarter if it's a blocked class.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. I didn't know if that was an option still. Okay. That makes more sense. And also for the teacher, for time for the teachers to convene and to talk, it would, like right now they have an hour and a half to do it. And this says you have 2 open blocks, one for meeting with a group of same teachers, and the other for like a job they have to do. Wouldn't that actually lower the amount of time they have to like actually do their own stuff?
Well, currently in most buildings, there is a duty involved at some point in that 85 minutes. So it really narrows it down even more. The thing that this schedule provides, so yes, in a sense, let me be direct there. This allows a lot more flexibility within the building schedule to be able to partner teachers so that they can collaborate instead of trying to catch each other before school, trying to catch each other after school. So there's also some different models out there where on the days when, and this is done in Des Moines, on the days when there's a collaboration period, there's a way for them to schedule on the back end creatively so that there's still a plan period allowed too. So we're exploring those different options, and luckily have a resource from Des Moines who is now working with us that's helping us with that journey as well.
Okay. Yeah. And then also the AA program. So I know that a lot of people in my program that are in it, like my other students, are a little worried about it. So also, like, so first of all, I know you showed that the thing where like most of them are going to be blocks. So the ones that aren't blocks, like, are how are we going to handle the professors coming in? Like, is there a plan there?
So the courses that are with the AA are block courses. And then we meet with EICC and coordinate the schedules between EICC and with our Davenport teachers. So that we've had several meetings already just to set that up. And they've also had internal meetings with each of the buildings.
Oh, sweet. Okay. And also, I do understand why we're doing this. I get it. I think something probably does need to happen. And hopefully we can make this work for the most people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your great questions. Appreciate it.
And Cohen, just there is a slide, but like I'm right up to it and it's hard to see. So I just want to quickly run through the CTE classes that are scheduled as blocks on what we're getting. Introduction to Education, Auto Tech 1, Auto Tech 2, Student Built Home, Pro Start, Independent Study Human Services, Early Childhood Education 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, Nurses Aid, which is going through EICC, Emergency Medical Technician, Vocational Welding 1 and Vocational Welding 2. And like I said, I'm sure you couldn't see that up there. Yeah, because I can barely see it here. So just so you know, there are some to answer your question. Any others? Okay. Director Barnes.
Mr. Flynn, on slide 13, there's the bullet point in year one. Most courses will be roughly 45, but some courses will be blocked. these courses were chosen by the implementation team in year one because the course met the criteria. Can you just help me understand what the criteria was for those choices? Thank you.
Trying to get my computer going here. The criteria that were used by that team were, what does the research say first? Secondly, what does the curriculum recommend? Is there a lab component that requires additional time, setup, lab time cleanup, data analysis? And are there current gaps between learning experiences that need to be eliminated?
Director Barnes, do you have anything else? Nope.
Okay.
Director Ward?
Thank you. You outlined some of the transition time issues. I believe at the last meeting, that was a concern raised. What are current transition times, and what timeline do the schools have to identify when they have this map ironed out to make sure 5 or 4 minutes at some schools is going to be enough?
Currently, the passing time is 5 minutes at our high school, so that part is not procedurally any different. The difference is going to be the number of passing times that will be involved.
And Diane, you'd mentioned that the Bell schedule allowed for intensified instruction. Could you elaborate a little bit more about how that compares to the block schedule and what the intensified instruction how you classify that?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. It gives us the opportunity. We developed, for example, Algebra Foundations course. And so students will be able to take their algebra credit, and then they'll have a foundations course that will go along with that so they can get that additional support. And so there was a data process to identify students and to go into algebra with that level. Ultimately, we would love to have that as a repeatable course so that each quarter they could move in and out. So we will get there, but right now it is developed as that year long. Another example would be a course called Elements of Literacy, and that's for students coming in who really need some of those foundational literacy skills in reading, and extremely thrilled to be able to offer that opportunity for students to really get on that path for literacy, because we know that is a deal breaker also for future success. So that intensification with a schedule like this, it allows us to put those courses in and to be able to be more fluid with them, and students can get what they need when they need it. Another component to that intensification is when we have a guided study hall, look at that as tiered support as well. So a guided study hall, you can have all the students go in, but we will have teachers available. So if there's a small group of support that's needed for a group of students, we can get that to students more quickly in a more responsive way. So I really see this not only as a strategic schedule, but a responsive schedule, which is challenging, absolutely, but is it worth it? It is. It gives us so many more opportunities to meet the needs of all students. Think about our students that are even the term accelerating learning, whether they're needing more of something or if they're going beyond. We can look at that full spectrum.
Diane, can you talk to how that would look for students in either AP programs or higher learning or advanced programs, and what that intensification could look like during that RTI time?
Yes. So that during that guided study hall, that's a wonderful opportunity to bring students together who are in an AP course, who may need some additional study group time or time to really look at what they're going through within that AP. So it's a way to bring groups of students together to meet those needs as well. So accelerating the learning in that direction.
One additional piece that I would point out is in a 4-period day or a 4-block day, if you were to, the student is in a math class that takes the first block. If you were to add in an additional block for the math, the ongoing or coincide or concurrent math support, that would be 2 periods of their day or 4 hours of an 8 hour day that is focused solely just on math. With an 8 period day, this allows the 45-minute algebra course and an additional 45-minute support, still leaving 6 periods in their day for additional classes. So that's kind of what that looks like when the flexibility that is afforded by having an 8 period day versus a 4 block day.
Oh, just one more. Sorry.
Okay.
2025, 2026 looks like we've implemented a pretty good flex schedule where we maintain some block. I know you said you have lots of planning sessions available for 2026, 2027 and beyond. Is the long-term goal that we maintain and retain some of the block scheduling flexibility to ensure we keep these courses?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the vision in the first place, is to have year-long courses, semester courses, block courses, and quarter courses. When you have that mix of a combination, it gives you the flexibility to meet the multiple needs of students. And just listening to some of the students earlier that came to the podium, and knowing how valuable that time is, that is really important for us to make sure that we can meet those needs. When I think his last name was Carter, came to the podium and really talked about that amount of time and how it set him up for success, and being able to have the time that he's needing is important. And with this phase 1 and phase 2 will get us to where we need to be. So not only can we get the courses in the right place, but to maintain them and sustain them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Director Beck, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have 3. The first one is a clarifying question. Can somebody tell me the difference between guided study and advisory?
Yes, guided study will have, let me reverse that. Advisory has curricular components and building needs that are built into it. So advisory could and will house our character strong lessons. It would house different building pieces that need to be discussed. There are other components that will be wrapped into that day. The guided study is a flexible piece for our students to get support that they need or enrichments that they need, that's built directly into the schedule. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that actually leads me to my second question. So currently, so as a college professor, I've taught on both 45 to 50-minute periods and double sessions and sort of in between. Pedagogically, they can all work, right? There's no one right way to do it. The only consistency is that there are things like labs that really just can't be done. And what we heard about and what we understand for some of our CTE courses that can't be done in 45 minutes. And so when I was looking at the list of things that are currently blocked, I didn't see any science labs on there. And so I was wondering what the plans were for those kinds of things, like a chemistry or a biology lab.
We talked with the schedulers, so the implementation team that meets every single week. We discussed different opportunities again on how to master schedule those labs. So it could be that a teacher is going to have a biology course, and then their guided study hall is right behind that or in front of it. So then they, on a lab day for them, that they would have that as part of a responsibility. So that is still in the works, but that is a concept as an example of that lab time. We also did discuss a couple of the AP courses that have labs, biology, for example, AP biology. And in early stages of this, there was a case made to say, let's offer that course and then offer an AP lab right behind it. So then it does become, in essence, a block course. The thing is that once we started to do that, it really started to tie things down, and we weren't quite sure that that was the right thing in phase 1. Now we'll explore that more in phase 2, but in that discussion, we know that AP is now a year-long course, and there are schools that are offering AP as 1 period year-long, in many, and probably most districts with one period. That's not to say that's the right answer for us, but it does give us that extra time to really explore that.
Okay. What I'm hearing is something similar to what we're doing in Illinois community colleges with what used to be called developmental courses. Students who need a little extra support for a math course, they are concurrently enrolled in something similar to a lab. And it sounds like that's kind of what the idea is behind some of these guided studies, is that they would be that support for the student who needs that extra scaffolding when they're in one of those math courses. Am I understanding that correctly?
That would be one way to use guided study hall, but it's also another way for a student who is in an AP course and again needing that additional support to accelerate their learning.
Okay, that makes sense. My last question is, I know parents have concerns or questions about their own children's schedule. And so if a parent has a question and is unsure as to sort of what's going on, who can they contact at this point? Is it the counselor? Who's the best person for me to direct a parent to reach out to if they have questions about their own child?
So if it depends on what the question is. We have many parents that are reaching out to counselors and getting information, and it's something that has been going on for years. If I'm a parent and I have a question, that's who my go-to person. But I also want to let I know Brianna and I've talked about this, and I know she's here, so I don't want to volunteer her name. But in some of the communication that's gone out, Brianna's name is on there with her email address. And then my name also. I would be happy to take any phone calls or emails. We did have a recent meeting with a parent who brought great questions to the table, and I think we ended in a good spot. So really encourage people to reach out if they have questions.
You know, I would add to that because John, Ben, myself, we've been a part of some of these conversations where they start with the counselor, they connect with the high school with the head building principal, and then they have additional pieces or thoughts, and they've connected to us directly as well as they've gone through that sequence of support. And then if there are things where we're like, okay, that sounds like an adjustment curricularly that we need to take a look at, then we've connected Diane and her team as we've gone through. So that's kind of that general process of any questions related to a student's experience. Start with the people closest to the initial work of that, and then you begin to kind of move through if there's some additional higher level conversations that need to take place.
Okay, thank you very much.
Director Potts.
I think the whole reason we're having this conversation is because it's been brought to our attention that there's some concerns on the part of the time allotted for the introduction to welding and perhaps introduction to automotive, and that the time is not sufficient to adequately expose those students to that skill. Okay. Now, there was a yardstick was used to measure what was to determine what was blocked this year. Then in phase 2, is that same criteria or is it a different criteria? Because if it's the same criteria, nothing would change. So what's the difference that might take place next year that changes the status of those particular classes?
Thank you for that question. The criteria is the criteria, and that's what we used for input the first time in August. And it wasn't until December, November, December, when we were getting feedback with the implementation team that, there are some scenarios we have to figure out. We were moving too much too fast. And so the goal for the phase 2 is to really look at those courses again and see how we can put that puzzle piece together. So the goal would be those 57 courses that originally were in the block. We're going to review those again, make sure they met the criteria, and then move them into that block scenario. So oh, go ahead, Willie.
Oops, I apologize. I heard a pause there. The piece that I think I would add to that is the as Diane said, the criteria is the criteria. So there are classes that met that criteria, but there was a timing issue of when those classes need to be implemented. There are the classes that we see on this list now of 32, I believe that's there. Those are, hey, we have to make those happen right now. And while at the same time allowing our schedulers and our counselors and everybody associated to begin to play with a smaller puzzle this year, and then we begin to add more pieces to the puzzle. So this year we're putting together a 500 piece, well, and Jay Shelf will tell you how many pieces, but a 500 piece puzzle this year, and next year we'll be putting together a 750, 1,000 piece puzzle as those additional pieces come into play for next year. So those courses, I think is a great question, are ones that make sense to be blocked, but they didn't need to have to be blocked this year, and we can add those into the bigger puzzle next year.
Does that help? Or
Students have already registered for next year.
course requests are in.
Yep, and the staffing process has been based on those requests.
I would also add this, not only is the staffing done, but from the course requests, the schedulers are working on the master schedule. So this year, the entire team came together and built consensus that they wanted master schedules done on March 28th. So that'll be the first time that all high schools will have their master schedule completed. What that provides is the opportunities for counselors to come back in with every single student again to say, this is what's going to work in your schedule, this is what's not. So then they can start working on any corrections, and then students can leave with a list, not their schedule, but they can leave in May with a list of the courses that they will be taking in the 26-27 school year. So this entire process is so interrelated.
25, 26.
Did I say it wrong again? Okay, thank you. I'll look to you and you're going to say, Diane, yes, wrong year, 25, 26. So with that, it's so interdependent that, we're in a really good place with phase one of those courses of having some block courses, semester and year long. Phase two, we're already starting. That launch has happened. And then let's get that next year work so that we can bring back as many of those block classes and quarter classes so that we know the puzzle, that 750 piece puzzle is going to work, or how it's going to work. We know it will work. We will know how it will work.
Done. Director Barnes.
I'm sorry, I have another question. When do we begin to get a read on whether or not this schedule change is working? When are sort of the interim assessments of whether or not it's working for all students across the district? I mean, this isn't probably something we can wait 3 years and say, hey, it's working. You laid out some criteria. Is this something next November, December, we start to get some evidence that it is or is not working?
Yeah. So it's interesting you asked that question, because in the team meeting that we had for phase two, that's exactly what the teachers and the schedulers and administrators were asking to. Let's use some of our time. That's an outcome of one of our meetings that they want to dedicate time to. We have some general ideas with outcome data, but we don't want to wait for outcome data. We want to know what those leading indicators are that we're making success. Grades, our pass fails, our attendance, our engagement, a survey. Are we getting the information from students that they're this is an engaging and they're finding value in that. So there's a lot of different things we can do, and I think through this, not only our implementation team that we meet with on Wednesday, but then our phase two team can really develop that success criteria. So we go in knowing these are the things we're going to check and monitor for success. MAP assessment, yes. We have, for the first time this year, growth measures and MAP assessment. So we have a fall, winter, spring benchmark. So lots of opportunities for data that we can collect.
Director Poston.
I really don't have any questions. I just have some comments. First of all, I really appreciate the time and effort that you've put into this. I know it hasn't been an easy task, but on the other hand, I don't appreciate that the board was not kept in the loop on this whole process. Yes, there were some reports that come along, but nothing was mentioned as far as CTE and going to 45 minutes. I appreciate the questions that Director Potts just asked and Director Barnes just asked. Those would have been some of my questions also. And I get what you're trying to do as a school district. You know, in the beginning meetings, you talked about helping with math and language arts and having that year long. I totally get that. You know, we're talking about improving math scores. And so that's all well and good, but never was there mention that CTE courses, or some of them, were going to be cut to 45 minutes. Okay. So for me personally, CTE trumps everything. Okay. And then you can just, and it's been mentioned right tonight, but you've presented this information to us before. This is the only area where we're above the state average. Okay. So why do we want to shoot ourselves in the foot and cut back on the opportunities in CTE? Again, we've developed the core diploma. We're cutting back on credits for graduation. It's not ending. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's not growing excellence. We're just trying to make things easy. I don't know what we can do now as a board. If it's up to me, I would, and I don't think we can make any motion tonight, but something needs to be corrected as far as its CTE program is concerned. And the other thing that keeps it just so confusing is phase 2. When this discussion was brought to us initially, there was no mention of phase 2. Okay, so help me understand why it won't work this year, but it will work next year. Okay, so if there's too much involved there, then maybe we need to pause and wait another year and then go from there. But I'm totally frustrated with what is going to go on here with CTE.
I understand your frustrations and the fallout of the cadence where the presentations were coming to the board is my responsibility and my fault. And there's a recommitment to ensuring that this happens. And so that is with me. We have a very good practice of bringing information before the board with the long range facility committee. And I've called each one of you and I've let you know that that's going to happen, that we're going to commit to meeting. We're going to commit to bringing that information here, and instead of just putting it in a Friday report. And so that has been discussed and moved forward in terms of where we sit right now in our scheduling process. It's almost impossible to explain to pause, to stop right now would be catastrophic to our scheduling, to the process that we have. And so, Diane, do you have anything to add to that, where we sit right now?
Yeah, and I just want to address your first question that you brought up about the state, that CTE, and absolutely, our CTE programs are a bright, shining star, and that's why We want to make sure that those are continue to be successful and that they have the resources and the time and opportunity that's needed for success. When we went through that schedule and that phase two didn't come up until we realized that there were a lot of scenarios that we really needed to get more information on to put these puzzle pieces together. And so we definitely can do a better job on that communication piece, knowing that instead of a 1-year rollout, we moved it to a 2-year rollout. And that second year is going to give us the time to again come back and make sure that everything is in place for success. And the CTE program, again, looking at the courses that are currently offered in CTE that are blocked will happen in the 25-26. And then that phase two is how do we bring those other ones back in to make sure that they are blocked. So we have that 1-year bridge. And then the state numbers, when you're talking about the graphs and the charts, those do include, and I do want just a clarification on those. They do include what's considered work-based learning, and the Department of Ed released this past year a new definition for work-based learning. And so we were able to, in the past, identify a job shadow as a work-based learning experience. And that's why, our numbers are great because we do a lot with that and we have some amazing opportunities. That is not the case anymore. So when you see that work-based learning number right now, it's not going to include job shadows for next year. So those numbers will change. I think that with that new definition, it has given us, again, a new opportunity to look at what we're doing to prepare for college and career around work-based learning, apprenticeships, internships, courses that we're teaching and bringing in community partners so that there's authentic learning and bringing in those job experiences within the classroom in an ongoing way, not just a one and done. And that's the distinct difference between what the former definition was for work-based learning and what the new definition is. And so I am here to say that our entire team, and when I say team, we do not stand alone. I mean, we are locked arm in arm to make sure that our CTE programs, that we figure everything out and that we're in good standing because it is so important, not only for the students. I mean, it's life-changing, as we heard this evening, for our students and then for our teachers that are providing that learning.
And again, I don't want you to take this personally, okay? So I appreciate what you've done here because the easiest thing to do would be to do nothing, okay? But we need to do something. And again, like I mentioned in math and language arts, and like I said before, I totally get that. But my question would be, can you guarantee for next year that all CTE courses would be blocked?
Diane, I think one thing that I want us to reflect on is not all CTE classes need to be blocked. And I appreciate the value of our CTE programs. And that's why I wanted to point out way back at the beginning, there are lots of programs and classes across the state, across the country that are able to deliver their CTE programming without the options that we are ensuring that we have. And they only have a 45-minute or even less in many places. I've seen classes as short as 40-minute classes. And that doesn't mean are they quality and not quality. We can't enter into that because that's all perception data. And that's why I do appreciate what Diane just shared. When we're looking at our ranking for our CTE programs, it's not solely just what's happening in that classroom. There are lots of aspects to our CTE programs. And so for me to go into an introductory level making cookies class, there are classes that do it in much less time and they're still making cookies. You have cleanup that happens in the next period because you're all using the same tools. There's a number of things that happen. So that statement of can you guarantee every single one? Not every single one needs it. What I would say is we're going to be intentional about guaranteeing every single one that needs it has that opportunity to make sure we're in that place.
Dr. Barney, in all due respect, I don't think that our CTE program should be compared to other schools' CTE programs. Why should
I
we
appreciate
be being compared to inferior CTE programs compared to what we have?
I understand the frustration. You know, I think our communication was lacking in some of this. Hard to undo that at this point. And then I have two questions, comments. Chemical management, that's assigned duty. Now, every single day for 45 minutes, somebody needs to be in charge of that. I mean, I get the others if you're doing guided study hall or, you know, lunchroom duty. Don't sign me up for that one. But it seems like, wow, I'd like to be chemical management because in my mind, I don't see it as an everyday duty.
And I think we would need to relook at the regulations for, there are expectations from the state about that being a position. I'm not sure it's the same as it was 20 years ago when this was implemented. So duly noted.
Okay. The other thing is, I understand with teachers, you said, you know, you don't want them to have 3 different preps on things, but I also, you know, being an English teacher in the high school level, I don't want 6 classes of English 1. Because your pacing guide says, at one point, I'm teaching 6 research papers, which means I'm grading research papers from 6 classes. So it's got to be a fair balance. And I can only say for English because that's what your pacing guides are going to have to change if that's what I'm going to do. And if I do English 1 and 2, again, the pacing guide's going to put me at research papers at the same time. So you need to look at the teacher's workload on how that really plays out.
And I believe our building principals and schedulers have done a good job of working with the department heads to that end, knowing that there are those pieces. I was not intimating that somebody would have 6 periods of the same thing. What I was trying to convey was we'll continue the process we've always used to ensure that there is equity in that regard. But one of the frustrations at the high school has always been too, I'm teaching algebra, I'm teaching geometry, and I'm teaching algebra lab. What CTT am I a part of? Where do I go? We just want to make sure there's some intentionality about how our teams are teamed so that we can look at data effectively and make sure that we're moving forward.
And I understand that, but you got an elementary teacher teaching reading, math, science, social studies. So, you know, to say, ooh, we don't want them to have 3, rubs me wrong. Thank you. And I do want to thank you for this presentation and going into all this. I completely, Dr. Barnett.
One thing that was mentioned tonight, which we didn't talk a lot about, was safety and risk. And I would encourage you, as you're considering those courses that are eligible to be block, to consider that component. I recognize very clearly that pedagogy, teaching, experiential learning is evolutionary. Very seldom do you actually see cadavers in labs anymore because technology has advanced so much and people learn in a different way. But I do think the health, safety, risk component should be included in the committee's evaluation of which courses should or are eligible for block. I didn't hear that mentioned previously. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Hi. So I understand that there's pretty much nothing we could do about phase 1, but for phase 2, I think there needs to be some changes, as you've heard. In our curriculums here at the school that I went to, we talk about communication, we talk about critical thinking skills, and we talk about collaborating with other people to get their information and like what they think happens. So is there a way in phase 2 that we could really think of all the things that we didn't like think of? Is there a form we could send out to teachers, not just our principals and our counselors? Because yes, they are very knowledgeable about stuff, but they are not teaching the classes. They are not with the kids all the time, every single day, like the teachers are. Is there something that we could send out to the teachers or to the students to get their information on that so that we can make change?
That is a fabulous idea. And I think as we go into the 25-26 school year, it does give us that opportunity to not only gather information from teachers and surveys from students, but this during last year or during the research phase or explore phase of this, we did meet with student youth leadership teams, and that was invaluable. I mean, they really spoke of priorities and shared questions, shared concerns, and I think that really is a place for us again to tap into all the amazing abilities of students and teachers to make sure that we have a cohesive decision.
Go ahead, Lily.
Is there also a way, because I know a lot of the people that are on those student leadership teams, they tend to be like more of like the academic side, or they tend to be of like a certain like same group of people that are in your AP classes and they care a lot. Is there a way that we could get people from our CTE classes into those discussions that probably wouldn't normally be in there?
Absolutely. I think doing more focus groups would be one way to do that. So it would be beyond the student group. During our explore phase, we did send a survey out to students, and we had 800 and I have to go back and get the exact number, but it was like 862-ish survey results from high school students, which was absolutely amazing. I think that really spoke volumes of the interest and obviously the infrastructure that we're building. I think so. Now I'm going to get on a roll here. It also would give us the opportunity to be able to get that student voice about here are the courses that we're offering. You know, what are your interests? Because that's where it gets really tricky. We have, again, over 400 courses in our course guide. Are they the right ones? Are they the ones that students are interested in? And we don't want a course catalog that has 1,000 courses in it, because then it's going to spread it out too much and we wouldn't be able to offer them. But we definitely want to hit on the courses that students are interested. What career paths are our students leaning towards? So I think there's a lot of value into those student focus groups spread across all the areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got just a statement, and then I have a very quick question. So, so the first plan seems to be in place, but I understand when you zoom out, it's only 1 year. And, once we fix the schedule, it'll be nice. And maybe even if it turns out to be way better after a year, that's great. But just to remind you that, people who are in this building, and it's only 4 years. So 1 year of, kind of rough teaching would just really not be good. So be mindful that, you need to be very, proactive in this. And then a very quick question for the AP classes. So it goes for a full year. So once you do the AP exam, would the class just end?
Very exciting. No, learning never ends. After the AP exam, there's lots of different things that can happen in terms of helping students build resumes or do a passion project or explore what their career path is or what they're interested in. So just getting that list of, again, different things that students can really engage in that would be of interest to each of the students within that AP course.
And it would be it would be connected to the course. So you do, if you're in AP biology, you'd finish it, then you would spend that month or so in between the AP exam and when school's out, and you would, I guess, do a research thing. That would be kind of what you'd be doing.
I think that for each of the AP courses, it could look different, but definitely lots of different options. Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. Anybody else on the board? Okay, again, thank you. Administrative reports. Board requests. Don't have any of those either. Board reflections. Director Ward.
Yeah, just wanted to again congratulate Principal Johnson on his new appointment and position. Look forward to seeing what you do at Davenport North. Wanted to thank everybody for their time. Members of the public, former students, current students, employers, teachers. I think it just shows your passion for the program and appreciate your advocacy for those. And I know we ran past the show choir kickoff time, but I know that the students are down there and showing off a little bit for the success that they've had this year. So,
Thank you. Director Poston.
I just appreciate the people that spoke at open forum. Appreciate the discussion that we had. Again, I'm not sure if we're going to come to a great conclusion here, but I do appreciate the support. And again, like I mentioned earlier, CTE is near and dear to my heart.
Director Beck.
I actually would really like to applaud our student board members for asking really insightful questions. And that was really one of the things that stuck out to me on tonight's meeting.
Cohen.
I think it's pretty obvious, the big discussion. I think this was something to get out to the public. I think it was good that we talked about it. I'm excited for our new principal at North. Now, I won't be there for you, but man, you're going into a school that's getting a new upgrade, new addition. Oh man, I'm really excited for North's future.
Lily.
I thought we had some really good discussion tonight, and hopefully it makes change and it's not just something that we leave here. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of things to consider in this, and I appreciate everybody that's taking the time to go through it, but still remember that there is always room for change. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Barnes.
First, tonight represented an investment in our people. Let's not forget that we approved contracts for all of our workforce, and that's one of the most important things that we do. Second thing, I'd like to echo Director Beck's comments about the wisdom of our student board members. That was on display once again tonight with great questions and observations. And then the final thing that I'd like to just mention is that I think that both the public that's been at the last two meetings as well as the administration, everybody is approaching this calendar and schedule question with the best intentions for our students. And it can be disagreements, even though that there are the best of intentions, and I hope that we can continue to work together. But I'm grateful for the public sharing their voice. That's important. That's what makes this school district stronger than ever.
Director Potts.
It's always good when we find out something we didn't know. And that's what happened tonight. We found out some things we didn't know. And the next step then for us as a board is to make sure that we follow up with the things we didn't know so that they're fixed down the road. And I think that's a commitment and I think the board can make to you, not as timely as you might like, but a commitment that's there. Second, the contracts with our employees, very harmonious, and they go out to 28, with the exception of wages, I'm assuming. I just think it's good once in a while to have a board meeting where we're a little disrupted, because we've tended to be, as a board, pretty much all on the same train, all on the same track, just chugging along as things are going real well for us after a period where we were all going to go to jail. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks. Good to hear. I am very glad that we were able to settle all those contracts in 4 days' time. That's quite an accomplishment. We're very respectful of all bargaining groups, and likewise they are respectful of us. And so it is it is a good experience, if you can believe that, but it is. I'm glad that we are thinking ahead with upgrades on elementary buildings, with the furniture and the painting and that kind of thing. I also think, though, we learn the importance or remind ourselves of the importance of communication, and to be real clear and upfront, so that everybody's on the same page. At least we understand everything on the same page. And we always need to remain student focused. That's what we're here for. It's to make sure that we are doing our best for students. Superintendent.
I agree with what everything's been said. I appreciate the comments by the public, appreciate the comments, and we're going to stay committed to ensuring that we figure these issues out as we move forward to the best of our ability. And I commit to ensuring that the communication flows the way it should between the board and the community, and so that's my commitment. I agree. That's one of the things that makes this board as good as it is, and why it wins all the IASB awards that it does, is because it is a body that will call things to the carpet, and we're committed to making sure that we have a positive result moving forward.
With that being said, Director Potts, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. Okay, so here's my running notes to planning for teachers. I won't comment. Did you notice?